Alrighty, hey everybody. I know a little late tonight. Um, so how are you guys doing? Hope everybody's well. Um, doesn't give me a count how many people are in here. Huh. Thanks, Toxic. I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for waking up, Matt. That's dedication. I don't know if I. That's a lot of dedication. Yeah, I think I'm gonna wait a couple minutes see if we can get other people in here. I'm only talking to five of you, but obviously it's more fun to talk to more. Um, since I hold on one second. So since I got home, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but uh, it's not really a topic necessarily part of criminal law, but international law. Um, well, maybe you can call it that, war crimes. Um, yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. Um, I just thought it was kind of interesting. So I'm going to get that kind of queued up. See, how many people do we have now? We got 7. Oh, yeah. Oh, hi, Gabby. Hi, Kat. Yeah, hey, Critter. Hey, 4M. Um, yeah, sorry, Toxic. I just tries to work out for everybody. Um, um, where is it? Okay. Okay, I got this all set. I think this will be a fun one to talk about. All right. So, hmm. Sorry, guys. One more thing I'm checking out here because I want to show it to you because I thought it was super crazy when I watched it. So, all right. Well, I mean, I think I'll save this for last because I think this was like the craziest thing out there. Um, let's see, where is everybody at? We got 7. I think I'm just going to start with that. Thank you. No, Toxic, like I said, I appreciate anything you're willing to do. That means a lot to me. So, thank you again. Um, so where is it? No, I wanted to show it because there was some gnarl. It was pretty intense, and I don't know if you guys had seen it before. What had been going on? So I guess we'll get started. So I guess first things first. This afternoon, Brett Hankinson, the detective on trial for basically, Matthew, not war records, war crimes. There's something very interesting going on in Ukraine right now. Uh, Actually, fairly unprecedented in history. And if I can get it to work, I'll show you why it's very unprecedented because it's very interesting. And I can't. I kind of got it to work. So let's get started. Brett Hankison. In case you guys weren't aware, he got acquitted today on all 3 counts, which still blows my mind. I'm not sure how he managed to pull that off, but my hat's off to him. From going through and watching his trial, I thought he was toast. And why did I think he was toast? He admitted to literally just seeing flashes through that glass door he shot through. And he also admitted, yeah, there was a bunch of blinds in front of him, and he just still shot through it. It was not good. It didn't look good. It was horrible. And yeah, he still got acquitted. Um, I don't see how. I don't think that was reasonable. Shooting blindly through something is not reasonable. When you use force, it has to be logical. If you want to defend yourself, that's fine, but you can't just blindly fire in every direction and hope that counts. So like I said, I have a big problem with how that happened, but I'm not on the jury, so I don't know what happened there. You know, uh, I mean, it's just frustrating. It was just frustrating to see that happen. Now I think we can get to the topic I know some of you wanted to cover was the for William Husel. Yeah, this morning that was very interesting what happened. Basically, this became an entire exercise on the idea of privilege and also about the ability to provide evidence. Hold on here. So I'm going to bring this up because I think it's very interesting. So this all started when Dr. Roth was testifying, and I forget his role at the hospital, but he was a higher up at the hospital, and there was a big problem. During his testimony, do you guys remember that this morning? It was the big hullabaloo with Dr. Just saw the warrant. Yeah, well, Gabby, here's the issue. It's not his job. He didn't put the warrant together. So he was given a warrant. The judge signed it. It's a valid warrant. He can go work on it. That's not the issue. Even if the warrant was 100% correct, what he did still wouldn't be justified in my eyes. So the warrant could be bad or the warrant could be good. He still doesn't get to do what he did. Is where like I think you need to focus. And I think that's the proper way to handle it because the warrant could be 100% correct. He still can't just go run around like Helen Keller and just his way through the apartment building. I do love the fact where he's like, well, I don't have access to Google. I don't have access to satellite. I'm like, if only they made something that fits in your fucking hand and you can get Google on. I mean, really? You don't know what it's going to look like? I mean, here you go. And this is just me thinking. I'm not a cop. I'm not some tactical guy who knows everything. But you know what? I will say, if you told me, hey, you might have to go deal with some dangerous people who have guns that might want to hurt you, I'm probably going to pull up Google Maps and say, where do these bad guys live? What can I do? Yeah, Gixxer 1000. Yeah, well, we're going to talk about Ukraine tonight because it's an actual interesting legal topic. But I will say there were some parts of, Detective Hankinson's accounts that do make sense. And I think one of the big things was, and I don't like how the prosecutor hammered on it, because I watched his whole testimony, was the idea that once the door got open and they started taking fire, that he didn't stand there and shoot back, which somebody's shooting at you. Yeah, get the fuck out of the way. That makes sense. And, I do think it was interesting when he talked about the fatal funnel. And do you guys understand that concept at all? What that concept is? Because I do have, I do know enough I can explain that and I can show you what that looks like. Well, I guess I'll show it anyway. Even if you don't know, even if you know, you're going to learn more. The fatal funnel is a concept that it's not just when he talked about it, it's something, the police use. Everybody uses this, whether you're a police officer, you're a Navy SEAL. The fatal funnel applies to everybody. It's about close quarter battle, close quarter movement. Fatal funnel applies if somebody breaks into your house and you're trying to clear it out before. Okay, Kat, I'll explain it. And I'm going to explain it with, so here's actually an example of it. And I apologize, the video quality sucks, but it's really good. I mean, you can tell what's going on in it. And it's hard to, and I don't want to use like an airsoft video, so I'm not going to do that. Okay. So the fatal funnel is a doorway. Basically, when you're making entry into a room, the idea is either you're trying to kill the bad guys in there, you're trying to get through that room, you're trying to control the room, you have to go in. And the police, in their sense, they don't actually have to go in, especially on a search warrant. They can stand outside and call in the SWAT team. But eventually somebody has to go in. Or, for example, if you're in the military and you're clearing a building or rooms, you can't wait. Like, you've got to go do it. Yeah, there's bad guys there. That's the business. What I'm going to show you guys is from the 22nd Special Air Service Regiment. Now, this is the Special Air Service is probably like the A team of Special Forces and Counterterrorism. They go all the way back to World War II, and they've pretty much done all kinds of crazy stuff since then. Here we go. Share video screen. All right. Share. Okay. So as everybody can see this so far, you're going to want to have your volume up so you can kind of hear what's going on. This door here, pretend it's not there. It's this door that's open right now, and that guy in the red shirt. Okay, this is the door they're going to come through. Now imagine if you're standing right here looking at that door and you have a gun. What can you do? Well, you can, actually, am I stream airing? Am I in view? Yes, I am. Okay, I'll just actually go like this. Especially for somebody like Cat or Critter, if you're standing in that doorway, if you're looking at that doorway, what can you do? Well, I can point a gun at it all day long. And if somebody comes through it, I can go bang, 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 bang. It's the danger point. It's the fatal funnel. If you stand there, you'll get killed. It's the dangerous place to go. So what do you have to do? You have to get through it. And how do you get through it? Well, you get through it like this.
Lads. So pull this away. So pull this away. Yeah. Hold.
Okay, so why is that important? Well, that's what you have to do. It's called speed of violence, speed of control. Now, those guys were practicing. So a lot of that is done at very slow speeds, and then eventually you do it faster and faster and faster. And for those guys, some of the most elite guys in the world at that, will eventually use live ammunition. They'll be shooting right next to each other, and they'll use live, like actual real life people will be the hostages. Spaced out all the room, there'll be a target next to them, and they'll shoot, and it'll be right next to you. Famously with Delta Force, when President Reagan went to visit them, he sat in one of the rooms they cleared with live ammunition, and he wore a bulletproof vest, but that's all he was willing to wear because he trusted them that well. And they cleared the room and shot the bad guys in there. So imagine if they were doing that fast. They got through the doorway fast and they took the room. So that's what the fatal funnel was. And that part, Detective Hankinson was 100% correct. That is a very dangerous place to be. You don't want to be in that spot. You either get in or you don't go in. So, yeah, was that a danger? Was he in fear of his life right that second when his buddy got shot and was bleeding to death? Sure. The guy got hit in the leg and the femoral artery. He you do that 100 other times, dies a lot. Bullets are, bullets are flying by. It's really loud. That gun went off in an apartment building. That apartment, it's going to be deafening. You're all hopped up on adrenaline. Your buddy just got shot. He's screaming. He's probably bleeding everywhere. You thought this would be like a normal, no robots in first. Well, you don't always have a robot. And also, think about it. If you're a bad guy and you've got like a gun to somebody's head, you see the robot, it's it. So sometimes you gotta go in and do it the old-fashioned way. Got to put in that dirty work, as the kids say. Yeah, I think at that point he was 100% justified. He could have shot right back through the door. Okay. Once he gets around the corner of the apartment, and this is where I think I'm going to bring up that picture again of what he did. Where is it? That's the problem. Having so many freaking windows open drives you crazy. At that point, he's still justified. You would have every right to use force, and nobody would fault him. My problem with him is once that force was done and he rounded the corner of that apartment building, you need a new justification. Sure, your buddies are being hit. Okay. Now, let's see, where is that at? Window. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is the door they were at, and this is the door they got shot through. Hankinson's here, where my mouse is, and he runs all the way around outside the apartment complex and over to this door. And this is a screen door that's blind because there's blinds across it. He sees flashes of gunfire, so he knows somebody's shooting, and he hears the shooting. He doesn't know who's shooting, and he doesn't know where they're shooting at. So he then says, well, I was worried that those were my friends. So he started shooting. Now, is that a, is it going on? Yes. Can you defend somebody else? Yes. But is it reasonable? I would argue no. And I understand he's going to say, well, I had to protect them, but you don't know who was shooting. It could have been your buddy shooting at that point. He didn't actually know who was shooting what. Now, he tries to claim it was a rifle. Well, it wasn't. There was no rifle in the building. Now, it was really loud, but that's because he was getting shot at from inside an apartment. It's a very tight space. And I don't know, for those of you who've been to a shooting range, an indoor one especially, you can feel the thump of a gunshot. Why? Because there's nowhere for it to go. Yeah, sure, outside they're really loud, but inside a tight area, it is deafening. I went to a course where you actually got to move through a shoot house once, and my earmuffs weren't down all the way. and I shot the first shot, and it was so loud. I put my earmuffs down, but for the next like day and a half, I just heard ee out of that one ear. Um, so yeah, it's going to be really loud no matter what it is, and I guarantee you, no matter what it was, it sounded like a cannon going off. So he shoots those shots, and then he runs down to the next window because the gunfire doesn't stop. But remember, at that point, who's doing all the shooting really? Well, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend did fire, but at this point, all the shooting is from his buddies. They're the ones shooting. So he goes bang, 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 runs down here, bang, 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 bang. This one, could that one make sense? Maybe. Thankfully, he didn't hurt anybody with this one or risk hurting anyone. The farthest one bullet got it stopped in the bathroom, but all the other walls stopped it. I don't think it was reasonable. I don't think objectively it was reasonable. And, just because you think it's reasonable doesn't mean it is. So yeah, I don't think this was a good one, but congratulations. You got acquitted. I go buy a lottery ticket if I were you, detective. Number one, because you're not working anymore, but number two, I think you got away with one, so enjoy it. But I will applaud anybody who wins. He could have only been seeing firing from other officers from where he stood. He said it was an AK. No, because the way he stated it initially, when the guy hit the ram, he came up into the door as the number 2 guy, so he was off to the side of the lead guy, the guy who got hit. He could see over his shoulder and down in there. So I don't think that's implausible, but I do think his whole argument of it was a guy with a rifle going like this. Is it really a guy going like this? Or is it a guy going like this, holding a pistol? Or is he holding a rifle? Do you really know that? Like, which one is it from here? Is it this or this? And I don't think he had. Oh, hi, Johnny. I think he was fired, so I don't think he's going to be doing much future actions. Somebody tells me he's probably not going to get hired anywhere anytime soon. Because even though he may have won his criminal case, that's probably a violation of department policy and should be a. Oh, Gabby, if you didn't know, heck, we'll bring that up. We'll bring that up right now. It's not, for him to say all this bullshit about, oh, I didn't have access to this or that. I pulled up in 2 seconds. Let me see here. StreamYard. That's the only part I do not like about StreamYard. It is not fast to share. So this is 3003 Springfield Drive. This is the apartment building that Breonna Taylor lived in. This little bit right here, obviously kind of think about it. This is cut down the middle, and there's apartments over here and there's apartments over there. So this quadrant is Breonna Taylor's, and then there's an apartment right above her. There's apartment here, there's apartment here, and there's apartment here. So Brett Hankinson ran out over to here, and started shooting right there. And those bullets went through the other side of the building. So if he had actually gotten his phone out and looked and not acted like a retard, and I hate to use that word, but Jesus criminy, his bullshit excuse of, well, I didn't know anything was there. I didn't have a satellite picture. You tell me I'm going to have to go fight some people with guns. I'm going to do as much intelligence as I can. Yeah, he was hit once in leg, and he was hit really bad. They also are not sure which officer killed Breonna Taylor. It was most likely him or one of the other officers. There's 2 leading candidates for the ones who fired the fatal shot, but he is not one of those guys. Oh, are you still watching the power plant, Gixer? Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So anyways, he got acquitted, good for him. The second thing today we're going to talk about, when we were getting to it, and then I kind of sidetracked myself, and yeah, then the ADD kicks in, is what happened with Dr. Husel. So Dr. Husel was still on trial, and the state's still doing their case. They brought up one of the hospital administrators, Dr. Roth, and then there were discussions about and statements from Dr. Roth about certain videos, or I'm sorry, certain reports he had compiled and information he had put together. And it turns out that that information was solely put together at the prosecutor's request. That wasn't the issue. It's this little bit of conversation right here I want you guys to hear that is critical to what happened.
Okay, help me understand. We've been talking about various things in here and things you did in reaction to what you saw. Okay? My question to you goes, did you ever review any of the trial preparation peer reviews and give rendering an opinion today?
Ever review trial preparation peer? Can you?
Peer reviews,
Never.
reviews by doctors about any of the facts in this case.
So that's when he mentioned the peer review. So peer reviewing in the medical communities, other doctors look at your work. In this case, because they wanted to figure out what happened, they brought other doctors in to review Dr. Husel's work, and all those doctors said, oh, we don't think it's good. Now, Dr. Roth is going to have to explain whether or not he reviewed those as part of his preparation for testifying today.
Did I ever once read something that was that was created under peer review? Is that your question?
No, my question is, there were a series of peer reviews done, and there were reports generated relative to some of the.
Okay, if you just saw Jose Baez smiling because he knows what's up.
As to some of the performances by the doctor on various types of cases.
I'm just want to answer your question clearly. So you mean external groups that reviewed some of these records?
Yes.
Did I read their reports?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Tom, who represents the hospital here today?
I do, Your Honor.
So the hospital's attorney is the guy who came in later with the glasses on. Now, why is that a problem? Because he read reports from other experts and now he's giving testimony that's been shaped by it. That is the first problem. Now he's referring to evidence and things that are not in evidence. And why aren't they in evidence? Well, when the hospital, we'll catch you up real quick. So once Dr. Husel got fired from the hospital and things were started, the hospital did its own investigation. They hired doctors. They went through everything they could. They had to figure out what was going on so they didn't get sued. Also, their insurance company would want to know. Everybody would want to know. So they did it, and it was done privileged. It's privileged information they had for themselves. Dr. Roth, this guy here, had seen that. So now he was alluding to these reports. Well, now you have a witness testifying about something he read in some other item that nobody has seen. Well, that's evidence now because it's also getting into hearsay. Well, what is in that report? How can we see it? What does it contain? Why don't we have it? Well, the hospital, in response to the defense asking for a subpoena of all records, said it's privileged information. You can't have it. And the judge, he later said he spent like 5 days, pulling 16-hour days, reviewing all the documents he could. Probably a ton of documents. Well, those are, and the judge basically kept them all privileged, only released a handful of things. Well, it sounds like there's even more stuff than the judge has access to now. So now we have new reports that we don't know about. Who's in those? Who wrote those reports? The people who wrote those reports, what did they look at? Who did they talk to? There might be more witnesses we need to look at. Those people need to come in and testify. Why aren't we talking to them? Because it's new accusatory material. Dr. Roth can say he read a report, but in reality, you want the person who made the report because that's the accuser. That's the person you want to question. That's the person you want to cross-examine. Now, the hospital is trying to avoid all that, saying it's still protected, it's still privileged, because they have to worry about medical privacy. And they also don't want to show the world probably how bad things were at their hospital because, 2,300 docs or 3,500 documents. Oh, I bet it's a lot more than that. The big issue is for the hospital, I guarantee you if all their information got let out, it would be an absolute fucking mess. I can't imagine how bad it is that they're that terrified. Like, think about what they found because remember, how many people got fired? They fired over 150 people. Nurses, pharmacists, doctors, administrators. They got rid of everybody except the janitor. Well, they say it's going to go 6 to 8 weeks, but I think the judge is going to start pointing out, like, I don't need this to be repetitive. We're like repeating testimony. Like, we get it. Dr. Husel's a bad guy and he used way too much. But you need witnesses with relevancy, and they're going to be bringing up things. I mean, we're really, if 6 weeks of them saying, oh, yeah, he's a bad guy. He used way too much fentanyl. You don't need that. After a while, it's, you have to add something new. So the hospital's arguing that privilege is still invoked. Well, there's two ways you can get rid of privilege. The hospital can waive its privilege. That's number one. The other way is by disclosure, and I mentioned this earlier. They fired the janitor. So, for example, if any of you came to me and you told me you murdered someone, that's privileged. It's confidential. I can't tell you. You come into my office and tell me you did it. Okay, I ain't going to tell anybody. And I've had some people tell me some things. I've heard some stories. Now, I can't disclose that unless you were to let me do it, and you'd have to do it in writing. The other way it could get disclosed is, let's say you tell me, hey, I killed my wife. And then you go down to the bar and you tell everybody you killed your wife. Well, you disclose that. And I told my attorney, so it's confidential. Well, no, it's not anymore. You disclosed it. So all those people in the bar can testify to it because there's no confidential and privileged relationship. And this guy started talking about it. And I think you can tell the difference between him and the other doctor, the guy who testified yesterday, who's the doctor and pharmacist. He was very well prepared. He was in the law office of Jones Day down the block. Yeah, he was definitely getting told what to say and what not to say. Very well prepared. This guy's a dope. I think you could tell when the judge was questioning him, I don't think he was trying to be cute. I think he's just an idiot. And he started giving shit away. And that's why the judge jumped in saying, and in this case, it's different. The judge knows so much more. He knows more than the defense attorney and prosecutor do about all that stuff he reviewed in his office because it's between himself. So him and the hospital attorney know what they're talking about, but these guys don't know. So that's why he kind of stopped it and he started questioning the witness to figure out, was there a breach and are there new evidentiary issues? The judge is giving both sides till noon tomorrow to write up a brief. I bet they're probably still knocking that out right now. You know, Jose's staff and the prosecutor's office staff, there's probably some law school interns out there who think they're doing some dope stuff. And yeah, it's kind of cool if you're working on this, but you won't remember that forever. They're going for it. So, by the way, anybody out there taking the bar, good luck. I hope it went well for you. I know it just happened last week, pretty much everywhere in the country. But yeah, now the judge has to figure out, was privilege breached? What's disclosable? What's not disclosable? Do we have new problems now? You have to start all over. Trying to respond to me like I'm a person, not a ghost. Well, I mean, it helps there's only 17 of us in here, so. But I appreciate that. So that's where it is. I'm very curious to see what they did. Tomorrow I have to be back in. I'm back in the office again. I'm not here. But there's nothing really to stream, so I'm just gonna work, guys. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to go annoy Long Crime or something. Sorry to say. Once they file those briefs, tomorrow afternoon, I'm 2 people and 2 dogs at the moment. There's no court tomorrow. So go, I don't know what Long Crime's going to have. I don't know, the Great Dildo Robbery of Waukesha, Wisconsin or something. I don't know. But you guys can watch that in the afternoon when I get done with all my stuff. I've got a client meeting like at 4 o'clock on tomorrow afternoon. So I'm actually a little busy. I'll come home. I'll probably get dinner sorted out and probably for a little bit at least as long as it's posted online, and they usually do in Franklin County, we'll look at their briefs and see what they're arguing. Now, I will tell you, they're not going to be posted now. They're not going to be filed by now. If they did, I'm impressed. Because in reality, if you have till noon tomorrow, take all the time you can get, especially in a snap situation like this. Yeah, fine, file at 11:30, file at 11:45. But if you get done at 8 a.m., let it sit. Come back and read it. Let somebody else proofread it. Let somebody else evaluate it. Shepherdize and double check your citations. So they'll come back to it. So we'll see what happens. I think it'll be very interesting. And is this going to be critical in the case? Who knows? Because we don't know what's in these reports. We don't know what these reports say. And we don't know what these people would say under testimony. But I will say it's still looking good for Dr. Husel. This guy, yeah, he's a dope. The other guy yesterday, okay, great. I still think Dr. Husel's in a good spot. They're trying to claim he didn't, he did something wrong, and I don't think he did. But we'll see. I'm not just at the point of the state can't prove it. I am inclined to believe he didn't commit murder and was just doing palliative care for people who were dying. What was the other thing we're going to talk about today? Oh, yeah, next thing. Going back real quick. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up when I see somebody type something. Somebody asked about Critter. Can Brett Hankinson be tried for murder? Murder of who? Breonna Taylor? Did he shoot her? No, he's been excluded. A couple of those officers have been excluded. So how can you try him for it? It's not a felony murder situation because what crime did he commit? That's where you have to come up with something like executing a bad search warrant. If you're given a warrant and a judge signed it, the Supreme Court has said that's a good faith exception. You're relying on a judge and a magistrate to examine and look at that warrant. You also have to worry about the affiant, the actual detective who wrote up that warrant. That's on him because otherwise, Brett Hankinson has to go to, he's been given a warrant, he goes and executes it. Just like the SWAT team, they don't go out and get the warrants themselves. They execute a warrant given to them. So, that's one of those times where it's not really even passing the buck. It just happens that way. Yeah, he's excluded. I think it's Hankinson, not Hankinson. It's Mattingly who got hit. And I think Nobles or, actually, is it him or Cosgrove? Mattingly and Cosgrove, I think, are the two most likely candidates. Nobody knows for sure. I think part of that is because the bullets that struck her were mangled beyond recognition. And they all use the same caliber firearm. At that time, Louisville Metro Police used the 40. So if they like their forte, they're problem solvers. But yeah, he did not shoot in the doorway. So if he didn't shoot and the other bullets didn't hit anybody, he would be validly justified in shooting down that hallway because that's where somebody shot. Now, there's neither on body cams yet. That's a whole separate matter, and I agree. But at that very moment, they both were mistaken. Breonna's boyfriend was mistaken, but he was in reasonable fear that he was shooting at bad guys. There's a reason why he didn't get charged. Now, do I think it helps him protect him legally that his girlfriend got killed? Certainly, but even if she hadn't, he's got a hell of a defense. So yeah, and that's kind of it for there. Another one I know that was going on big wise was Robert Hayes. I know some of you guys were watching that, the guy down in Florida. He was not convicted of the death penalty. He was not given the death penalty by the jury. He was given a life sentence instead. And that's really just a function of where is it? Neither Critter, I don't understand that. Well, what the police will try to tell you is, well, they'll say, well, we don't use body cams because we don't want to disclose identities or tactics, techniques, procedures, or possibly confidential informants. It's a bullshit excuse, but it's an excuse the constabulary routinely makes. So not a whole lot you can do about that one. The police do what the police do. So let me see here. All right. So this is what happens. Now, and for you guys who were watching the trial, I understand what was going on. A death penalty case is two phases. You have the guilt phase and the penalty phase. The guilt phase is literally just the regular trial. Did he do it? Yes or no? If he's convicted, then you move on to the penalty phase. And the penalty phase is not about whether or not he did it, but are there enough reasons to give him a life sentence, or are there enough reasons to give him the death penalty? And it's about aggravating and mitigating factors. And this is where you'll get family and friends testify, oh, he's such a nice guy, or oh my God, he was such an asshole. Or you get psychiatrists, oh, he's actually, he's got a lot of mental health issues, or oh my God, this guy's pure evil. That's where you get that involved. So what happens is the jury then deliberates. The evidence is presented to them. It's a little different because a lot of it's opinions and character evidence, stuff you normally don't have in a trial, because you're trying to determine whether or not this person deserves to be put to death or not. Then the jury deliberates and they return a verdict of their own there. It's a separate verdict. So in his case, the jury deliberated about 7 hours on Wednesday before they decided that he should be given a life sentence instead of, the death penalty. He was convicted last week of 3 counts of first-degree murder, and they returned for the penalty phase. And after they read through it, they read it out just like a verdict, and they say, we the jury find that he shall be put to death or be given life imprisonment. It sounds like he gave a big sigh of relief, which, yeah. From what I understand, these were kind of gruesome, but hey, the jury, that's how it goes. Now, and this is interesting, and it's not interesting, but I know some of you may ask this. Well, how does that work if the jury can't agree on one thing or another? In a penalty phase, if you can't agree, then it's life in prison. Because there's only 2 choices. Death penalty or life in prison. You've already convicted him. So at that point, if there's no agreement, it's the lesser of the offenses. A death penalty has to be a unanimous verdict. And in Florida, death penalty cases are a 12-person jury. Generally speaking, you're not going to probably get away doing less than 12 people on a death penalty case under a Supreme Court scrutiny nowadays. But, Florida traditionally, a felony jury is 6 jurors. So Curtis Reeves, he had 6 jurors. If there was a death penalty case, he would have had 12. There are times, though, where, in like Ohio, for example, can you try a death penalty case to the bench instead of a jury? You can. In Ohio, though, for example, it is a 3-judge panel that sits and hears the case. So when you have a death penalty case and it's a bench trial, you have 3 judges sitting there, and they vote. And just like the other case, they have to vote. They have to agree to convict. If they can't, then there's acquittals. And just like the penalty phase is just like the guilt phase, they have to agree he should be put to death. If they can't agree, it's life in prison. So some states might be a little different, but yes, you can do bench trials for death penalty cases too in many circumstances. So yeah, good for him. And for his attorneys, you may sit there and think, well, that's not you might think, well, that's not a victory. The guy's going to prison forever. When you're in a death penalty case, generally speaking, they've got the goods on your guy. Your guy's toast. And Robert Hayes was toast. They had the evidence linking him. In a death penalty case, the victory is making sure your guy doesn't get the death penalty. That's the victory. That's the win. I mean, if you could really walk in there and, sneak one out from underneath the devil and get a acquittal on a death penalty case, by all means do so, but you're not likely going to get that to happen. So let me see here. Will this incident end this type of warrant, Cat? No, it won't. I did that video on Amir Locke. Dynamic entry warrants to SWAT teams. I mean, he got killed, and that guy wasn't doing anything wrong except sleeping on a couch. You should watch that video I posted. That was a no-knock warrant. No-knock warrants are never going to go away. Police say, oh, yeah, we'll look into it, and the government will investigate itself and determine it did nothing wrong. They'll say, oh, we'll reform our policies and procedures. And they may make a new policy or procedure, but it's not going to amount to shit down the road. People are still going to get killed in no-knock warrants. And there's probably going to be more of them because we're going to hear about them more and more because we're now a more interconnected and, knowledge flies around society even faster and faster now than it did 20 years ago. So it's never going to go away. He has 2 more cases as well, or at least one I hear. Yeah, so if that's Robert Hayes you're speaking of, he could, there might be more. Was there already a trial on the death for Breonna Taylor? No. Nobody has been charged with her death. The officer who got shot, if he was the one who shot her, he's got a very valid defense. He got literally shot. So, if you're going to argue I was in reasonable fear of death or serious bodily injury, I just got shot and I almost bled out, so I returned fire. Yeah, that's reasonable doubt right there. So, death penalty might be there for his next case. I don't know. Matthew said, I don't understand how the verdict goes his way and the attorney has to pull the jury. Does the attorney hear the verdict wrong? Matthew, are you talking about Hankinson or Hayes? You always have the right just to ask the jury, and sometimes the court pulls the jury on its own accord. But even, generally speaking, are you sure he pulled the jury, or did the prosecution pull the jury? But you have the right to pull the jury on a verdict and say, juror 1, is this your verdict? Yes. And you always have that right. Now, I agree. If they tell me not guilty, I'm not going to give them a second chance to say, you know what, never mind. I'm taking it and walking out the door. I think they got this wrong with Hayes. You know what? That's for people can agree or disagree. I think it was wrong. Maybe the popcorn trial was wrong. Oh, I forgot to say neener. I got it right. Yeah, I don't think they met the burden. Oh, Hayes. Yeah. So, that's it for this one. So yeah, once again, good congratulations to his defense team. That stuff is hard to do. And death penalty cases, in particular, in a lot of states, you need specific training for those as a defense attorney. Especially if you want to be like appointed counsel, public defender's offices have special teams of attorneys who are qualified to do death penalty cases. And it's not merely just you've been around for a while. There's special classes you have to take, generally given by your state Supreme Court, because they don't want death penalty cases getting overturned. Those are a lot of time, a lot of money. Like, that's just a mess waiting to happen. And also with the death penalty case, like, we should make sure we do this right and get it right from the start. So there's classes you take, there's training you take, and then eventually, I'll use Ohio, for example, you sit as the second chair on a death penalty case. And I think you have to sit through 5 death penalty cases as second chair that go all the way through to a verdict that you can then be involved as a first chair. I think that's good. That's one of the few times where I think having a strict, rigid rule is a good idea. Hayes judge asked prosecution they want to pull. Prosecution said no. Defense said he wanted to pull. Hayes was telling his attorney to stop. Yeah, I think for Hayes, maybe he just had a brain fart. I do agree. Hayes is like, dude, shut the fuck up, man. They're gonna like fucking change their minds and say no, I'm not, and they go back in and deliberate and then give him the death penalty. Yeah, that could have been. I'm not sure. Hey, sometimes you don't hear things right. That's always I'm always nervous when I've ever been in trial. You hear the verdict and it's like, we find the defendant, and it's going to be like Zoolander where they're like, they say actually guilty, and instead I think I heard not guilty, and I'm like, yes, and it's like, wait, guilty, oh shit. Or they'll say not guilty, but there have been times where I've only heard the word guilty, and I'm like, oh fuck. But then I see my client standing with a big ass smile on his face, and I'm like, either he got it wrong or I did, and he appears to be very happy. So I assume we got it right. Like one time that happened to me, I didn't hear the not guilty part, and I didn't want to make it seem like I was an asshole by asking. So I looked on my client. He's like big shit-eating grin on his face, and he's crying, and his family's back in the back. They're like, "Oh, thank God." So I was like, "Okay, I guess we won." Um, so that's that for today. Now this is the it's already 10:30. Oh, so we're doing pretty good on time. Yeah. So now we're gonna go to a different place. We're gonna talk a little bit about international law and why. Because this is something. It's not a war crime. Uh, yet. Could it be? Maybe, but it's not yet. We're going to go to the wonderful country of Ukraine. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it by now, but it's a country in Central Europe, or Eastern Europe, actually, I should say. Part of the Russian steppe and also part of the mountainous regions of actually continental Europe. In particular, Kiev we're not going to focus on, which is under siege and maybe likely to fall at some point. We're actually going to focus in on this blue thing right here, cutting through the country. That is the Dnieper River, the Dniper River, one of the great rivers of Europe. And we're going to zoom in to what, I forget what exactly it's called, but this is actually considered a reservoir. The river widens out. And we're actually going to zoom in on something very interesting. Now, when you see the words oblast, that's kind of like their term for a state. It's a political subdivision. There's Dnipropetrovsk Oblast and there's Zaporizhzhia Oblast. Well, this thing right here is interesting because it is the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Yes, you heard me right. It is a power plant. And then you see these things here, which are boom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Are the nuclear reactors at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. In fact, we can pull them up. And you can see from there, 1, 2, and it goes all the way down. Well, we can talk about that. This is a special one because this is it's crazy on the level of like almost gnarly. This is like really crazy. But the other stuff, yeah, and there's allegations Ukrainians might be doing it too. Anyways, reactor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 nuclear reactors. Thankfully, these are not Chernobyl style. These have been fixed and taken care of. So as of right now, and I've been watching this probably for about an hour before we started, we are going to switch over to some, as the kids say, there's some happenings at the nuclear power plant. In particular, I don't know if you can see these things right here. This is my mouse. This is one of the administration buildings. The nuclear reactors are way down here off to the side. Way down here by the bottom of the screen. Okay, so they're not there. You guys are aware the war is going on and the Russians have invaded. Well, this is well within the Russian range of their invasion at this point. And these are Russian armored personnel carriers and infantry fighting vehicles. And if I could get the video to play, you would see them shooting into this building after taking fire from Ukrainian military personnel. In fact, there was a massive fire over here earlier. So yes, they are literally fighting at a nuclear power plant. Now, my first thought was, holy cow, that's insane. The second part of me was thinking, wow, that'd be a really cool Call of Duty map. So why do I bring that up? Well, oh, hi, Tasha. Critter, it's okay. Well, Gixer, I still think, may the Ukrainian army litter the countryside with burning Russian tanks and continue to keep doing so. Slava Ukraina. I know I can't. Ugh, I'm not the best with that. I can, be говорите по-русски. I can по-русски. not bad at that, but Ukrainian, I'm not the best at. You know, let's see here. Oh. So I just think it's this is where you just go on to Google and you can type in as I've done, if you're not able to keep up with things, you can just learn about how good Western military technology is compared to the Russians. As you can see, apparently our anti-tank missiles are very, very good because they happen to turn tanks into heaping piles of fucking twisted steel. Oof. And in case you were wondering, nobody made that out alive. And yes, that turret is on upside down because it went whoop and flipped over. Those guys probably didn't make it out alive. Yeah, those guys had a bad day. Those guys had a really bad day. You know, that is another bad day. Another bad day. Yeah, that's a bad day again. Yeah, bad days all around if you are fighting in Ukraine right now. So, yeah, that actually may not be a bad day. Somebody you probably could have survived that. That was a hit more on the tracks, but yeah, that is definitely not a good day. Those guys did not make it. Yeah, they're did not work. So, yeah. So, may they keep doing what they're doing. Oh, I don't think it's going to happen like that. We're not going into, you know, yeah, modern warfare. I think it's like that or a battlefield map fighting on a nuclear power plant. Um, it's not going to be that big a deal. Eventually, things are going to get sorted out. We're not going to go to World War III, but stopping. Well, yeah, Russia's military is primarily composed of conscripts between the ages of 19 and 27, who serve for 1 year. That's a majority of their manpower. But moving on to that, it's there are laws. Believe it or not, in warfare, and some of you may know this, there are laws in warfare. The laws of armed conflict, the Geneva Convention, the Hague Conventions. There's all kinds of rules you can do. Like if you have a white flag and you're surrendering, you can't shoot people. You're not supposed to bomb churches. You're not supposed to terrorize and kill civilians. All those things that we know about today. Or for example, if people are in a lifeboat, you're not allowed to attack them. Those are all rules. Well, there are other rules, and some of those rules they try to cover different things. And I wanted to bring up this because it's very interesting. So the Geneva Convention was started and ratified August 12th, 1949, relating to the protection of victims of international armed conflicts in response to World War II. They have Protocol 1. They have a couple different protocols. In international law, you really need to read up on it. It's a whole nother world unto itself. But in June 8th, 1977, they updated it. Well, in 1949, we didn't have nuclear power plants or major gas refineries and oil refineries or, formaldehyde factory. If one of those blew up in a neighborhood, it could kill a lot of people. For older people out there, you might remember Union Carbide's plant in India at Bhopal, where they released a ton of poison gas and killed like everybody in the town. So it's interesting, though, when it talks about protection of works and installations containing dangerous forces. This is Article 56 to Protocol number 1. It's not it's Protocol 1. It says works or installations containing dangerous forces, namely dams, because, yeah, if you break a dam open, you can kill a lot of people. And, if you're thinking, well, wow, didn't the British do that during World War II? You're goddamn right they did blow up a dam, and they killed a ton of people. Technically, was that a war crime? Yes, but It's not a war crime if you win. Keep that in mind. More importantly, nuclear electrical generating stations, because that's what we're dealing with right now, is a nuclear power plant, a 6-reactor nuclear power plant. That nuclear complex is one of the largest in Europe, actually. It shall not be made the object of an attack, even where these objects are military objectives, if such attack may cause the release of dangerous forces and consequent severe losses among the civilian population. If there's other military objectives nearby or near it, that could cause the release of the dangerous forces and cause losses among the civilian population. You can't attack those either. So, you're looking at that. You're like, okay, well, what the fuck does that mean, Sean? Can you do it or not? You're allowed to attack. It's an infrastructure target. In this case, it supplies 20% of Ukraine's energy and electrical power. Taking that out would be very important. Not necessarily destroying the plant, but let's say I'm in control of it. What can I do? I can turn down the power knob. If the rest of Ukraine's still fighting, I can turn off their electricity and say, if you want it back, stop fighting. It's a legitimate military target, no different than a water plant or, like any other thing you may think of. And think about when the Iraq War, and it's actually a very common tactic. When you're trying to plan a full-scale invasion, what do? You attack infrastructure, telecommunications, TV, radio. You keep the government from being able to communicate. Water and electricity. You do that, you could pretty much paralyze a country. Think about here. If you took all those things out, the internet, your water, and your electricity, what happens? It's going to be Mad Max pretty quick. So you can attack the nuclear power plant as long as you're not going to release a dangerous force, which means you're not going to cause a meltdown or release of nuclear material, and that would cause severe losses among the civilian population. Which you might be thinking, what severe losses? Well, if you remember, there's this place in northern Ukraine. We may have to zoom in on it in case you guys aren't aware of it. Funny story. It happened in 1986. Pripyat is the name of the town. You might know it as its name of the nuclear power plant nearby. Chernobyl. And this is inside the exclusion zone right now. You're not allowed to go there. You could go there on tours and guided tours. But this is, right here, is Chernobyl. Here is the failed reactor. Is inside this containment building. This is the city of Pripyat. 50,000 people lived here. And within a day, they were all evacuated. So that's a significant loss. But we haven't had one in the meantime, so we don't know what that means. But as of right now, the Russians and the Ukrainians were fighting over it. And if I could get the video to play, you'd see tracer fire from heavy machine guns and I think an RPG or two slamming into the building and slamming into the tanks out front. So it's interesting to think about, is that a war crime? If it's not, at what point do your actions become a war crime? There are allegations, and I think it's pretty much been confirmed. The Russians, for example, are using cluster bombs, meaning a bomb that when it opens up, it doesn't explode. It shoots out a bunch of little bombs that explode all over the place. So instead of one hole, you have a bunch of little holes all over an area. They supposedly have attacked civilians. On the other hand, the Ukrainian government and its military has made allegations that they will be executing Russian artillerymen if they encounter them. You are not allowed to do that if they surrender. Once forces have surrendered, you must accord them all provisions accorded them under the laws of armed conflict. You cannot kill people who have surrendered. No quarter is not acceptable in today's world. So that's a war crime. So once again, I have a feeling war crimes are going to abound on both sides here. I just thought it was a very interesting thought exercise because they are fighting over a nuclear power plant. Well, is that illegal? Well, no. And I think that makes sense because if you're the attacking army and you find out that the other guys are holding it, well, you're not allowed to attack it, period. So what do? Say, oh, oh, well, fuck it. I guess we can't go in. What do you knock on the door and say, like, hey, can we have that? And what if they say no? You're like, okay, well, we'll see you. No, you wouldn't do that. The same way if the Ukrainians were trying to push the Russians out and the Russians still held on to it. Well, they have to say, oh, well, fuck it. I guess that little square area is now Russia. No, you should be allowed to force them out. Now, if you find out, wow, launching an attack will cause a nuclear meltdown, yeah, then you can't. And that's a war crime. But otherwise, you're allowed to try to take property and, strategic assets. That was a lot of rambling. I'm curious to see what people had to say. Yeah, this is the biggest combat invasion the biggest combat action in Europe since the Battle of Berlin in 1945. Black Ops. Yeah, no purity. That's another exactly. You can't fly flags and you can't be disguised as civilian targets. You can't take military equipment and make it look like civilian equipment. You're not allowed to fly under other nations' flags or banners. Why would he nuke? Okay, yeah. Let's see here, Eric. That's actually really good one, and not a lot of people know about that one. So you get a gold star. If I had one, I'd put it on the screen for you. Hi, Ken. Thanks for coming on in. Do they really care if they commit a war crime? I mean, I would say no. They're the Russian army. For those of you who are aware, I mean, it's the same. They're the same guys who went into Grozny in Chechnya back in the end of the 90s, and then went again and right in like 1998, then came back immediately. And yeah, they did what the Russians are known for. The Russians, they're not exactly considered to be people you want to trust to not kill you or cause you problems. But this was the capital of Chechnya in 2000. It's been completely rebuilt. But yes, they turned it into the fucking moon. That is a moonscape, basically. And they went block by block with artillery and annihilated everything. Yes, that is the beauty of the Russian army. When they decide to act like a sledgehammer, they are a devastating thing to deal with. Now, that is a war crime. But once again, it is a war crime if you get caught and you lose. Yes, no false surrender. Yeah, I don't think they care. They don't care. They're doing what they do. Yeah, they bombed a children's hospital. Now, that's where you have to figure out, did they intentionally bomb it? Was it a stray bomb? Because if you are trying to bomb something and you miss, like, okay, oopsie poopsie. I mean, in Sarajevo in 1999, we accidentally put a cruise missile into the Chinese embassy. I think you can consider that a war crime, except we said, oops. Yeah, Kickstarter Chernobyl. Chernobyl's been being decommissioned for the past 20 years. So that's not really, Chernobyl's not a threat. The only way Chernobyl's going to be a problem is if you blow up the ground there and you kick crap up in the air. Yeah, bombing other civilian situations, yes, that's true. But I'm saying bombing the hospital, I don't know enough to know about that one. But yes, I've seen the video of them cluster bombing Kharkov and shelling other cities. What else is there? The fuel air bombs. Fuel air bombs are not against international law. Those are actually thermobaric weapons are somewhat better than explosive weapons because they do lessen damage. But a fuel air bomb is entirely within the laws of war to use. I know that was, guys, I'm sorry. I hope that didn't get too political or anything, but I thought it was very interesting to talk about because there's all kinds of laws and criminal shit you could do, even fighting a war. And you can commit crimes while you're killing people and be protected from killing people, just you can't kill them the wrong way. Chernobyl's a threat. Yeah, well, them just driving down the road isn't an issue. I'd be like if they're actually fighting over it, or they blew up the containment facility and they exposed the reactor again. That could be an issue, but you know, there wasn't really any fighting over Chernobyl, so that's not the problem, I would say, at this point. Um, what else did I want to talk about today? Oh, yeah, yeah. Actually, no, I'm not really sure at this point. I kind of ran through everything. Um, you guys have any questions about anything we talked about so far? Is there stuff you've heard about you wanted to talk about tonight? Kind of like the floor is yours. Um, to be honest, all bullshit aside, a war is really, they really limit what bombs you can use. I mean, really. Um, well, I mean, yeah, basically there's a convention against cluster munitions, cluster bombs. There's a convention against landmines. But that's really the big stuff. Like there's a non-proliferation treaty for nuclear weapons. Um, but yeah, other than that, I mean, like, yeah, you can use napalm, you can use white phosphorus. Um, all that stuff's legal. Thank you for answering me. You are welcome. I didn't want to yell in the mic, but well, guys, yeah, like I said, please, any questions you guys have tonight, and I don't know who's still in here. Um, so feel free to throw a question out. Um, oh yes, and in Husel there was a mistrial finally, and Jose finally did do it. And basically, he pointed out this morning before the start there have been issues of they haven't gotten all the expert testimony yet. They haven't gotten all the expert reports, and that's important for them because if they're bringing in experts to say, if the defense expert is coming in and say the prosecution's expert's full of shit and wrong, he has to know what that report is. He has to know all that testimony, and he needs time to evaluate it. There was that issue in the Rittenhouse trial, like an expert trying to look at some stuff. I need some time to look at it and figure it out. So, yeah, that was a mistrial. Judge overruled it. Could I see the judge? Oh, I mean, if I was Jose Baez, I would. But you guys also have heard me in my philosophy. My chair creaks. I'm asking for a mistrial. I think he was the two times where the prosecutors, are talking loudly about stuff and, kind of making peanut gallery comments loud enough for the jury to hear. Yeah, I would have made the mistrial argument then after the second time. He didn't. But yeah, I mean, those are and I joke, but about when I would ask for mistrial, but those are really serious mistrial issues. Not getting this information, I would argue this is a mistrial problem. I would ask for a mistrial. I would put that on the record because you don't know, the judge knows what's in that document, but he hasn't seen all the evidence yet, heard all the testimony, and it sounds like there might even be more stuff he hasn't looked at. There's no way to know. There could be exculpatory material that could show Dr. Husel did not commit this act as murder and would support his claims, and we won't know about it because we haven't seen it. That's always a danger when you have potential exculpatory material out there. And based upon all the witnesses so far testifying, yeah, it sounds like this was done very sloppily, and there are a lot of holes in this. Dr. Husel is not some schlub doctor. He's not a bad doctor. He's not an asshole or a piece of shit. Sounds like he was a really good doctor, a really good guy to work with too. So, yeah, it just seems weird. He's the only guy, and everybody focused in on him. And it's, this happened, but there was a million fucking problems in this hospital, but this is the big one. Like, okay, I don't know about that. But yeah, I hope he does. I don't think the war is going to last very long. I mean, yeah, there's going to be a lot of unconventional warfare and guerrilla fighting. Um, why can the hospital attorneys have reports that are privileged? Impression. So here's how I would say that. Um, there's different ways you can have privilege. So, for example, if the hospital is working with its attorney and it talks to its attorney about something, attorney-client privilege exists. So they could come in and say, "I'm not disclosing that because I talked to my attorney, and that's privileged information." That's a valid reason not to disclose something. Work product, trade secrets. Now they gave it to the judge to look at, and the judge decided whether or not it was truly privileged. And it sounds like a lot of it was at the time. But yeah, I mean, it's probably mainly privileged because it's very damning. It makes the hospital look really, really, really bad. Um, but both sides agreed. It sounds like the prosecution and the defense agreed that other things were going to be off limits. So you can agree that there's privilege. You can agree certain stuff's out of bounds. And that's a neat part about the law. If you agree to stay out of certain areas and certain topics, that's fine. I had a case once where a gentleman was, I had a guy I was, defending, and he had a drug problem, and he stole some stuff from his neighbor, and she was an old lady. She was 67 years old. Well, in Ohio, to try to get him into an intervention program where he might get his conviction, eventually dismissed and his case sealed and expunged, he had to complete that programming, but you couldn't do the programming under state law if your victim was over 65 years old. So the prosecutor and I, they cleared this with the victim. The old lady was fine with it. We changed the birth date, and we agreed, and we made an amendment. He made an amendment to change that lady's birthday so she was 64 years old at the time of the offense. It's considered a legal fiction, but we both agreed to it. So the court, said fine. But there sounds like there's so much more. This guy's now talking about extra reports and stuff that nobody knows about. I don't even think the judge knows what he's talking about. Like, there's stuff outside of what the judge had access to. But even then, artist, I can say all kinds of stuff who's privileged. There's all kinds of privileges that are out there. In some states, there's a privilege between a person who tells their priest something or their pastor something. There's sometimes doctor privileges. There's spousal privileges. That one's a big one because that's at the federal level and the state levels. There's all kinds of privileged information out there. It just really depends on how it's being played out. Everywhere, every way can be different. I'm so far away. The prosecutor move. A really good shot at judgment. Okay, yeah. Well, yes. By JOA, I think you mean like a dismissal or a directed acquittal from the court. Yes, I think that would happen. Rarely granted, but the prosecution witness carry on like this. You never know. Yeah, I think that's a big problem. So I hope that answered your question, artist, about what's going on there. So, so let's see. Sorry, I gotta check something real quick. So let's see here. Okay. Thank you. It made sense. Okay, good. I'm glad it did. Well, guys, I'll give you guys another second or two to kind of put some stuff together. Really like your channel, Sean. You answer a lot of questions. I try to answer them the best I can, and it helps that you guys ask questions I can actually give you the answers to. I really regret the day there's like a night and people ask questions and I don't know the fucking answers, and I have to go for an hour and a half. Or start Googling shit and hope I can find the right answer. I appreciate that, though. Tell your friends, tell them I've been busy the past 2 weeks. I'm gonna try to start putting out some more videos though, aside from the streams. Uh, Also, I'm not gonna lie, trying to grind out Husel every day for the next 6 to 8 weeks. God Almighty, it's gonna. Even if I do it like this, where some days I'm sitting here and some days I'm not, God, it's gonna fucking kill me. I don't know if you guys are gonna want to follow along that long too. Uh, I mean, I'm more at this point. I know what the state's gonna say. I want to see what the defense says because that's gonna be the interesting part. Let's see here. Hell, nobody has all the answers. Yeah, it depends. Depends who you ask. um, so yeah, that's really it for me, guys. Well, I don't think Abaya says he was framed. I don't think he was framed. But it really seems like he became the scapegoat. I mean, this guy is. I mean, I keep harping on this. He's a really fucking smart doctor. He's an anesthesiologist, which that is a really hard thing to get into. Oh yeah, second sleep before work. Thanks, Matthew. I always appreciate you tuning in because I know that's it's almost 6 a.m., almost 5 a.m. there. So get some sleep. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, artist. He's a very talented and skilled and intelligent doctor who's widely accredited, was very well liked within the hospital by all the staff, was named their doctor of the year before, almost 2 years in a row. So it just seems a little weird. All of a sudden, they're like, "Oh my god, he's this murdering piece of shit." And then when you talk to these people on the stand, they're like, "Ah, well, really wasn't that bad, and he didn't break any rules, and yeah, we just seem all sketchy ourselves." So I just think he was a scapegoat for a lot of problems this hospital had that all came to a head, and this happened to be going on. So yeah, good night, Gabby. Thanks for him, but we shall see. We'll see what happens. And you know what? I will say this much: given what Jose Baez has put together so far, um, I think he's about that and probably thinks he can prove it. So we'll see. And I don't think he was throwing it away. I mean, I'm a little more inclined to believe he was just engaging in really intensive palliative care, keeping these dying people, out of pain. So we shall see. So, anyways, you guys have a nice night. It is right now 11 o'clock. Yeah, you guys take care, and yeah, we'll be on tomorrow evening. Have a nice night, everybody.